Flying a circuit, we pass over International House and set up for a touchdown at the specially prepared strip at Ravens Hollow. Geordie and Kirk, who have arrived ahead of us, call the birds in for a perfect landing. The geese are shepherded into a specially prepared pen, and in the days to follow they're sexed, weighed, and fitted with identifying neck bands. A week later, good news, Igor is located in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania by Gail and Bill Hunter, and they generously truck him 200 miles to Airlie, where he is returned to the flock. But a strange thing happens. The once proud leader of the flock is now goose non grata, and he's shunned by his siblings. He takes to the water to consider his position. While Gavin Shire, Airlie's lead biologist, observes his relationship to the swans. Joe and I spend a week planning our next 400-mile leg to the Tom Yawkey Wildlife Center in South Carolina. By late November, we leave Airlie and set course for the Carolinas. Again, the birds will not climb. At one point, they follow a flight of wild geese in for an unscheduled landing at the horse farm owned by Miss Peggy Augustus, and it takes a little explaining to her on our part. There's another stop at the Lotus Shrine of Swami Satchidananda on the James River. We land on the date of the Swami's 80th birthday. The geese are quite curious about the shrine and spend the day exploring. Just as he was landing here, Joe's engine had quit, so he unloads his motorcycle and heads out in search of new spark plugs. The next morning we jump-start it, and after removing a thin layer of frost from the wings, we were headed south again. Virginia is a big state when you have a constant headwind. Our ground speed is seldom more than 20 miles an hour. Sometimes we feel we could have walked the route faster. At this stop at the village of Clover, Geordie and Kirk spend the day relating to the birds.
Turn to me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. This little parrot. Oh, that's great. That's great. Got you.
With bad weather forecast for the next day, toward evening we fly another 10 miles to land at Big River, where Jim and Sandy Compton put us up in relative luxury. Even a hangar for the aircraft. Jim is a retired crop dusting pilot and regales us with many an aviation tale. He tells us a pilot's worst two enemies are ground fog and dirty fuel. 3 days later, at a stop in North Carolina, Kirk and Geordie set up the pens while David Woodhouse, the most experienced ultralight flyer of the crew, puts his expertise to use and helps Joe sort out a persistent imbalance with his wing. Before the sun has risen the next day, we hustle to get airborne. There are patches of ground fog and we think of Jim Compton's warning. But it still looks thin enough to proceed. The fog thickens so much that for a time we lose sight of the ground. Even the video camera quits working. It's a frightening time. Our guardian angels are with us, and the only clear patch for miles reveals a brand new airstrip, a gift that we take advantage of. Later in the day, we're able to proceed, stopping overnight at the home of the Wallaces near Aberdeen, North Carolina, where they treat us to a feast of barbecued oysters. Two more stops and a long, drizzly run over the great PD swamp finally brings us to the Tom Yawkey Center a full 10 days after we've left Airlie. Dr. Sladen has driven the route and is there to welcome us.
The dominant bird, and the first one that fell out of migration from Ontario. And yeah, in fact, it's about time they lost some weight.
Yeah, we can actually stop the horn right now. No, we should.
Very important to have a little beguiling.
Generosity, dedication, wildlife conservation.
Bob Joyner, the resident biologist at the Tom Yawkey Center, fills us in on the history and conducts us on a tour of the 20,000-acre preserve. It's fascinating to us Canadians, more used to northern landscapes. The geese are penned in an area appropriately called Goose Pasture. 3 days later, leaving Kirk in charge, the geese are released to explore on their own, while we all head back to Canada for the Christmas season. A week later, the geese disappear completely from the Yawkey Center, and despite a concerted effort in the Carolina, there's not a feather of evidence of their existence, except for one goose found near Myrtle Beach on New Year's Day. The next spring, we return to pick up our aircraft, and without geese, we sadly return home, contemplating their demise the whole way. We arrive back in Ontario in early April, and the birds are forgotten. Then, April 19th, big surprise. 5 months after we left them in South Carolina, we get a call from a wildlife officer in Niagara Falls. Igor has been sighted in a park. And Before the elation has a moment to subside, we get a call from the sod farm. 28 of our geese, with some wild ones, have returned. And the next day, Igor arrives too, with 3 wild females. He just stopped by the falls on his way home. We are totally elated. Twice now, the aircraft-led migration has worked. In the spring of '95, a total of 33 geese of the 36 that flew south had returned. We contemplate our next project. Well, as most people know, Canada geese aren't threatened or endangered, but we had learned a lot from them. We felt now we were much closer to trying this experiment with the bird most in need, the whooping crane. So in 1995, as an interim experiment, we raised a flock of sandhill cranes. Again, not an endangered bird, but a close cousin to the whooper. In '95, while most of our time was taken up with helping Columbia Pictures and Carol Ballard produce Fly Away Home, we raised a small group of sandhill cranes in an attempt to have them follow the aircraft like the geese. Our experiment is successful, and although the cranes are more difficult to raise, they soon become expert at flying with the ultralight. But it is this bird, the whooping crane, that we wish to help. It once inhabited most of North America, but now there are only a few left. Joe explains what we hope to do.
There's only one wild migratory flock of whooping cranes left. They nest at Wood Buffalo National Park in the Northwest Territories of Canada, and they travel 2,500 miles to the Gulf Coast of Texas. What we would like to do is work with the whooping crane recovery team to establish a second flock. We'd introduce them in Prairie, Canada, and hopefully lead them with ultralight airplanes all the way to the southeastern United States.
Yes, the new dream is to help establish this second flock of migratory hoopers. It will hopefully ensure their survival forever, and we also wish to pass on what we have learned to others around the world who are working to save endangered migratory birds. As a footnote, by November of 1996, 2 of the ultra geese that had come back to Ontario were observed again back in the Carolinas, having flown south on their second season. We believe the rest are also returning south, but with no effective way of tracking them, we have to rely on public information as to their whereabouts. To that end, as you've seen in this documentary, all of the ultra geese wear this yellow striped gray neckbands, starting with the letter K. There is also an 800 number at the end of this program. We would greatly appreciate any reports of sightings of the ultra geese.